It is my pleasure to introduce Isaac Barnes. Isaac is a beekeeper just south of Columbus. He has 150 hives of bees. He does a considerable amount of work with pollination and producing honey.
And thanks to the OSBA. This is really awesome. As Dana said, my name is Isaac Barnes. Jane, my wife, and our 3 kids, we have this business called Honeyrun Farm, and we're up to 250 hives now, the ones that I haven't killed. It's been around 250. But when we hit 150, we thought it was about time to make a career change. I had been teaching, and we thought, well, you know, we're making enough from this, doing okay, and so this is our first year of actually working the bees as a profession. So we'll see how it goes. The title of this presentation, I guess, is Products of the Hive, so that's what I'm going to show you. All of this stuff says Honeyrun Farm on it, and I thought it was going to be a marketing presentation, but you know, these are the products that we get into. There are a few others. If you have questions, please raise your hand and I'll repeat it, and we can, you know, go from there. Please ask questions. So products of the hive. First of all, let me just go through the bee year. Our year starts in January, February, March, feeding bees, taking care of them, getting them up to par, so that the first product is not even something you see here, it's pollination. We take our bees into the apples, sometimes into the pumpkins, but the apples come in April. They need pollinated, right? And we are paid by these orchards to bring hives in, a trailer load at a time, move them to the apples, and set them out there, and the bees do their thing. They go pollinate flowers, and we bring them home. So that's number 1 product of the hive, and it's actually the most valuable product of the hive. If you look at, countrywide, you hear all kinds of stats. Dan, is it $14 billion, something like that, I hear, from pollination alone, producing bees, enabling the fruits, vegetables, nuts to come about. So in our case, it's apples. So that's number 1 product of the hive. Then as the year goes on, you're into April and May, things start to really flower out. What we do is we try to collect honey from the hive 3 times a year. Our first collection, it's called pulling the honey, would be at the end of May. What blooms in the end of May is the black locust trees, and that's really what we're after. So having a nice, big, healthy hive mid to late May is really important for us. And when the black locust trees bloom out, it's maybe a 10-day to 2-week bloom. The bees are crazy about it. And they're on these blooms and bringing the nectar back to the hive. They you know, dry the honey down. I guess I won't get into the specifics of what honey actually is, but nectar dried down is the basics of it. And this black locust nectar is the most beautiful, light-colored honey. This is actually a little bit darker than pure black locust, but this we take off the hives about the first week of June, and it is the spring honey. Okay. I wish I had brought samples. When we go to the farmers markets, we have samples of all this stuff, and people really like to try. This is a really delicate, mild tasting honey. Just a really unique floral taste. Not many beekeepers bother with it because it is such an early season. The hives are still building up. But you know, we try to do it because of the farmers market thing we do, and people really enjoy tasting a really delicate, unique honey. It is our, you know, our high dollar honey. We sell this for $8 a pound, which is higher than most, but the reason is we don't take much off the hives. Most yards that we have are not even near a black locust grove, and it's hard to call that black locust honey. The 5 or 6 that are close enough to lots of trees don't produce a huge amount. I'll give you some numbers. This year we took off about 700 pounds of the black locust honey versus what's looking like it might be like a 10,000 pound year of the summer honey. So not much of this, a lot of this. Summer honey is the next thing coming on. I'm taking this off the hives right now. We started about 3 weeks ago, and we'll go right on through maybe mid-August, a bee yard at a time. Maybe I should tell you what a bee yard is like. What we do is we have 10 to 20 hives per yard set up. And these bee yards are located preferably somewhere that's kind of a set-aside area, not right out in the middle of 100 acres of corn. That, bees don't really like that, and you've got a lot of dangers of pesticide drift and things. We try to find areas in a river bottom and a CRP ground, which is like set aside, somewhere where the bees will find lots of forage. And so anyway, I've been going out to these bee yards, try to make it 2 to 3 days a week, and take a big chunk of honey off the hives. And what it is lately is this summer honey. And you can see the color difference. This honey is Canadian thistle, a lot of it, a lot of clover. There's the yellow clover. I've seen bees a little bit on red clover, but not much. The little tiny Dutch clover that you have in your yards, that's what's in the summer honey. Lots of berries, blackberry, blueberries, milkweed makes a nice honey. It's a huge mix of things. And this is what we sell the most of, the summer honey. In this part of the state, if you taste a general honey that has been on the hives, and it most likely is this color, tasting like summer honey. The unique thing about beekeeping, buying Ohio honey, is you can find lots of different ones though too. South of here, 50 miles, 100 miles down by the river, that honey is really dark. And it's tulip poplar. It makes it really dark. So you get different honeys around the state, but this is what our summer honey looks like. So what I do is take that off the hives, run it through a big spinner. Some of you have seen that. Maybe hang around here and ask questions. If you don't know what that looks like, somebody will tell you. And then you have these honeycombs that come out feather light. Put them back in the supers, the box. I need some little props up here. But you put these supers back out on the hive, and the bees go back to work. And what we're waiting on now is the fall honey. And what this is, it looks like, you can see a slight color difference, but the taste is very different. The fall honey is a mix of goldenrod and aster flowers mainly. We'll be taking this off the hives mid-September to mid-October, in that time range. And the taste is like a butterscotchy, kind of got a little bit of a bite to it. And you guys know that weed called goldenrod that's everywhere, the yellow weed. Well, bees are crazy about it. And they're making some good fall honey off of that. And then shortly after the goldenrod blooms, the asters come out. And there's the white aster and the purple aster in our area. And we're just, by the way, we're just south of town, about 30 miles. So local, right here. And the bees are on those two things, and the honey is a mix of those nectars. This will come off the hives, October 1st. Try not for any later, because the bees need honey themselves, okay? Or if they don't have honey, if we've taken it from them, they need fed. So that's one of the things we have to watch. We don't have much of this come off the hives either, because it's a real bargain. If you're taking much of this off the hives, the bees are going to need fed. So that's an expense. I try to leave as much as possible. I think those bees are going to make it through the winter. And some hives won't give us any goldenrod honey because they need it for themselves. So anyway, that's our third major type of honey. Products of the hive. You can do things with honey. These are infused honeys. You guys heard of that before? Infused honey? It's flavored. Yep. It's technically not pure honey, but all it is lavender or lemon verbena herb, and you steep the honey just like you would steep tea or anything. What we do is just take a 5-gallon bucket, dump a bag of lavender, dried lavender herb in there, mix it every day for 2 weeks or so, and the honey draws out the essential oils from the herb, and you end up with this lavender tasting honey. So as far as I'm concerned, you know, this is pretty much pure honey. It's just, it draws out a little bit of essential oil, and it just takes a small amount to flavor the honey. Same with the lemon verbena. These do really well at the farmers markets. People really like that flavor to their honey. A lot of people ask, well, how do you know it's pure lavender honey? Meaning what they're thinking is we have 100 acres of lavender out there and the bees are just on that. But that's not it. It's just steeped honey, infused honey. So that's a good one. Other products of the hive, of course, you have the old timers know about this, and the young timers know about this, but the people my age have no idea, it seems like, at the farmers markets. This is honeycomb. You may not be used to seeing it in a round disc like this. Most of the older people that did honeycomb do it in a square box. This is what we've gone with. This is called a Ross round, and it's I just posted a blog about this week. It's not the easiest thing to do as a beekeeper. You really have to find a strong hive and get all the bees down to about 1 box, and then put your supers on with these Ross rounds, because the bees seem to avoid them. And once you pinch the bees down, you kind of forces them up in and forces them to start working these things. And although it is kind of a pain in the butt to produce, you can see the product is really beautiful. It's a round section of comb. Some people just love these things. You just pretty much knife the honey out of there. You can spread it on bread. You could just eat it straight. How many here have had honeycomb, just straight honeycomb? Okay, about everybody. Hey, Barry. Well, it's got a nice little texture to it. It's gorgeous. I love to have this. Sometimes this is my breakfast, just a few spoons of comb honey. Get to chew on it a while and you know, spit it out or swallow it. The ones that don't come out perfect, the Ross rounds, we cut up and we make into, this is called chunk honey. That's another product. A lot of people have never heard of chunk honey. I guess it's really popular down south, but it's getting more popular at the markets. People who want mostly honey, but a little bit of that comb texture in there. You can see what that is. It's got the Ross rounds cut up and just put in a jar. And we'll do this size, and we'll do pint sizes too. So, a couple more products. This is one of the easiest ones. People have in the past asked us for raw honey. You see, well, this has gotten hot. Usually it's stable enough that I can just turn it upside down. This is granulated honey, okay? And people, like I was saying in the past, have come to the markets and they look at our honey and they say, well, I am looking for raw honey. I want the raw stuff. And we say, well, this is raw honey. It's right out of the hive, not heated. Well, that's not the raw honey I've had before. The stuff I've had is really thick. It's like a spread almost. And after a few years of hearing that, we thought, well, let's give them the raw honey. You know, as you probably know, raw honey is raw if it's right out of a hive and if it's not heated and not high pressure filtered. It's raw honey. But what they're talking about is granulated honey, or maybe whipped honey. This, now it's real easy. All we do is we bottle up a bunch of these things and put them in we have this refrigerator that we keep about 50 degrees. And this is last year's summer honey. We just let it granulate. One little perk, or maybe not, depending on who you are, but we pretty much bottle this right out of the extractor. We don't let dead bees and things float out in there, but every now and then you'll get a little bit of wax cappings and things like that, and people kind of like that. The crowd that likes this raw honey likes a little bit of texture to it. So we sell granulated honey, and it does pretty well. It's starting to take off in the stores also. People are looking for the really raw honey, so that's just granulated honey is all it is. We sell this in pint size too. Other products of the Hive. This is something we got into about 3 years ago. This is pollen. Little grainy pollen. You eat it as a health food. As I mentioned earlier, the bees are, well, they're pollinating plants. You know, that's their job. They go out there, and the plants have an attractant, which is the nectar. They end up covering their bodies with pollen, and they will kind of pull that pollen off their bodies, and they'll put it in a little pollen sac on their legs. They'll bring it back to the hive, and what they use it for is a protein source for the larvae coming along. You need some protein in that hive, not just carbohydrates, which is the honey. And well, pollen is something that benefits us too. It's supposedly the most perfect food, as in you could survive off of pollen and water and not be deficient in anything. It's got supposedly everything your body needs. I don't know if I'd want to survive off of this for years and years. The taste is kind of grainy, kind of earthy. You know, I like graham crackers like what Maisie's eating back there, but supposedly you could and it'd be fine. You wouldn't be deficient in anything, so I think people buy it a lot as just a supplement to their diets. They use it as to boost anything they may be lacking in. It's good stuff. We have these pollen traps. That's how we collect this stuff. I'll collect it for a month and a half in the springtime and a month and a half in the fall. And the color changes as the flowers change. You know, bees aren't on just one source of flowers. They're on lots of them. You've got clovers, dandelion, and maybe a little locust pollen in there. I don't know. In the fall, it's very orange, and that's the goldenrod pollen. And we'll mix it, we'll freeze it in buckets, and we'll sell this stuff at the markets and in the stores too. So that's another good product of the hive. I think it's no, Jane said no. We're not going to tell people that. You can find out yourself what pollen does. One thing we use, one thing we make here is soap. We use beeswax and honey in the soap, okay? That's another, you can use hive products for lots of things, but I thought, like I said, I thought this was going to be a marketing spiel. We use this stuff, okay? Homemade soap, beeswax, another product of the hive, okay? We use it, most of the cappings wax, which, who knows what cappings wax is? Maybe I'm, okay. When you extract honey, the comb has this layer of wax on it that holds the honey in there. Oops, probably a little pollen information. The comb has a layer of wax on it, and you have to get that layer of wax off of the honeycomb to get the honey out of there. And so that's called cappings wax. And after letting all the honey drain out of that wet, mushy cappings wax, you end up with beeswax that you can melt down. We melt it down into these big bricks, and then those are kind of chopped up over the winter time, and then we have candle molds. That's where most of our cappings wax goes, into making candles. We have found a decent market for these, not really at the farmers markets, but online. Our sales have increased, and you know, it's great. Another hive product. Pure beeswax smells really good when it's burning. People use it for other things too, not just candles. Woodworkers use beeswax a lot. Glass makers use it. Jewelry people use beeswax. Lots of things you can do with it. It's better than paraffin. So one of the things that we've done is we've made these tiny little things filled with honey. We don't do this, but this is our own honey, and we found out it sells really well. So, you know, this is obviously a product of the hive, honey, but it's put into a straw. This is called a honey stick. There's this company we found that will take your honey and put it in a honey straw and send it back to you, and kids are crazy about this. People put it in their tea, in their coffee. What we do is if our kids are making too much noise and we can't stand it anymore, they get a honey stick. It's like a reward for them for making noise, but it shuts them up for a few seconds. So, yeah, honey sticks, good deal. We've actually got about 50,000 of these coming to our place really soon. We sent a whole barrel away. And this last year, they've been selling so good at the markets. We've sent 8 to 10 buckets away, and you know, shipping on honey is ridiculous because it's heavy. So what we finally did is with this summer flow we've got coming on, we thought, well, let's just barrel up an entire 55-gallon drum of honey and send it. And we did, and I guess tomorrow I got the call from FedEx that we've got now 50,000 honey sticks coming back to us. So if you guys need honey sticks, you know where to come. One thing we've also done with the sticks is made them into nice little packages like this, so you know, people can grab them and go, and they don't have to count through them. So there are products of the hive. One thing I've missed that I get asked about a lot is propolis. You guys know what propolis is? Anybody? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. You do? Okay, propolis is something new. Well, it's this stuff that covers our honey house floor after about 3 days of extracting honey, and it's a pain in the butt, but it's actually a good antimicrobial substance. It's what the bees use to kind of glue the hive together. They'll line the insides of the hive and the frame with this somewhat sticky resinous substance. It's called propolis, and people use it as somewhat of a medicine. Just like they'll take pollen, well, they'll take propolis, and that has been something that people more and more are asking us for. We don't mess with it, but maybe someday we will. It takes some drying and I don't know how you process it, truthfully, but that's something that we'll look into. Another product of the hive is royal jelly. People ask for that sometimes. Does anybody know what that is? Royal jelly. That's the stuff they feed the queen bee. As a bee is developing, first couple days, everybody gets fed royal jelly. And then pretty much everybody, I'm talking the little bees, the little brood, it gets cut off, okay? And if they need to produce a queen in a hive, they will continue feeding a few cells, a few larvae, royal jelly, and what that does is it helps the queen develop ovaries and become fertile. Well, you can take royal jelly too. It's a hard substance to produce because you can imagine every tiny little queen cell, you need to take a little eyedropper full of royal jelly and put it in a container, and that takes a long time, and it's really tedious. There's not many people in the country that do that, but you know, the people that do it make it pay for itself. You can imagine the markup's pretty good. If you've ever seen royal jelly in a health food store, it's for a little tiny bit, it's like $30. It's expensive stuff. But what does it do? It just like pollen and propolis, it supposedly has really good health benefits for you. I don't know if there's anything royal jelly does that pollen doesn't do. Not that knowledgeable. Somebody out here, I'm sure, could tell you. Come on up and see products of the hive. It's a little plug for us because it all says Honeyrun Farm on it, but any beekeeper can do this, so thank you.